welcome to a new segment here on our God-given mission called Gospel in the World. Not to be confused with Gospel in the Word, which is another segment. But what we want to do with this segment is take a look at some current affairs, things happening in the world, and speak directly to them using the Bible and trying to see it from a Christian lens. And so every week or so, you'll have different members of the team sharing their Gospel in the World. Today, I'm going to focus on a really important portion of Scripture, one that is addressed to everyone, even you listening. And it's in 2 Timothy 4. But before we do that, some context. Why am I bringing this up? Well, one of the things that lockdown's done, of course, is giving us all a lot more time online. Who doesn't love that, right? Time online, watching your favorite shows, but also debating. A new app called Clubhouse has seen Christians finally find a way to talk to Christians, unite Christians from around the world, debating important theological issues, having arguments sometimes. And, I've been part of a few. I've been on Clubhouse, I've sat in, I've listened, and so I wanted to share something to speak directly to that, because right now, because of lockdown, I think there's been an explosion of all sorts of different ideas, let's put it that way, theologies, myths, things online. And initially, I remember feeling a bit frustrated. I remember having a chat with a friend and saying, it's too much. Everyone's just saying all sorts of different things. There's no kind of order. These are the things I complain about often. And when I was complaining, I just felt God be very kind of clear with me and saying, well, Mike, why are you complaining? This is something that's been prophesied. Like you're not special in this way. There's nothing to complain about. Why? Well, in 2 Timothy 4, a wonderful portion of scripture, which I'll speak about in some detail. You remember that from verse 4, here's what is told. Here's what is said. In fact, let's go from verse 3. For the time will come when people will not put up with sound doctrine. Right? Instead, to suit their own desires, they will gather around them a great number of teachers to say what their itching ears want to hear. Right? So the prophecy given way before now is that there will come a time where people will look for teachers and look for speakers that say things to them that they want to hear, things that maybe are consistent with a carnal nature, maybe things that make sin not that deep, right, as some will say, or maybe things that make us the center of the universe, because that's all we've always wanted. That's how Adam fell, and that's the rebellion that we've been on since. It's how do I become the center of the world, so to speak, right? Here's what it says in verse 4. They will turn their ears away from the truth and turn to myths, right? But you, and this is Paul writing to young Timothy here, but you keep your head in all situations, endure hardship, do the work of the evangelist, discharge all the duties of your ministry. I'll be honest in saying I lost my mind. And so I had to go back to this and just revisit it. So I have to just calm down in the first instance and go, Mike, calm down, right? Don't lose your head. It was already told that this time would come, right? Paul was writing to Timothy, but equally he was writing to us today, because this is what we're seeing right now, an explosion of stuff. But that's what's really interesting, and some things I think it's important to be aware of. The first thing is this. He says here that there'll come a time where people will turn away from truth and instead turn to myths. Now, what are myths? Myths is hearsay. It's a couple of words here, a couple of words there. You can't really find out where a myth or a rumor originates. You don't really know. That's not written down anywhere. It's not structured. It's just what people say. And this is the one giveaway of when you know that you're probably on shaky ground, is when I ask you, what do you believe? Where's it written down? Where's the kind of concordance or the, give me a list. And you just go, oh, no, we don't write down here. We just kind of, have a chat and stuff like that. The difficulty with living a Christian life based on deep discussions on social media is it all unfortunately amounts to myths, and these are things that you can't contend with, you can't really assess. I mean, think about it this way. Suppose you say something really, wrong, for want of a better term, in a Clubhouse discussion or in a Twitter discussion. And I want to address you. So I go, what's that thing you said again? And you go, I don't remember. Well, we can't address it. Or suppose you skillfully change what you said when I want to kind of, critically assess it. Well, again, We don't know. Why? Because nothing's written down. It's essentially a myth. In this portion of scripture, 2 Timothy 4, we're told about these things. We're warned about these things. We're told to engage. Absolutely, we're told to engage. I mean, we famously say in the portion of the scripture where Paul is given his final remarks, he tells a young Timothy who's coming to visit him to bring him his parchments, right? And parchments there essentially is another word for paper. It's something you write on, something you scribe on. So Paul, even though he was in jail, essentially awaiting to be killed, he wanted to still speak to his generation. He wanted to contend. He wanted to, to get involved. So that's a clear model for us to also get involved. So I'm not saying that's not get involved. We have to get involved. But what I love about this portion as well is, not only does it tell us to be aware, to beware of myths, not only does it tell us to definitely contend and to get involved with the issues of the day, it also gives us a framework for our character and behavior as we do so, right? We're told here, in verse 2, right at the top, to preach the word and be prepared in and out of season, to correct, to rebuke, to encourage with great patience and careful instruction. And I love this, that little phrase there, patience and careful instruction. What that means is when we go into these debates and these discussions, as Christians who love the truth, we can't get in the dirt with people and punching upwards. We have to clarify. Right? It's a careful instruction. For me, that speaks of a forensic nature. Discussions where the virtue isn't placed on new information, but the virtue is placed on clarity. I asked a friend once, you've been going to a lot of debates, and she said, yeah, I have been. And I said, since you've been going to all these debates, have things become clearer for you? And she thought about it for a minute, and then she said, no. And I said, well, that you should stop going. Because unfortunately, what you've done is you've put a high virtue and a high prize on you understanding arguments and you learning new information, but you haven't placed a high virtue on clarity. Because the whole point of all these different discussions is that you come out knowing more about Jesus or seeing him even more clear than you currently do. That's the whole point of these discussions. If we don't have any of those, then you probably shouldn't be getting involved, right? But also, patience is a virtue. We know that. We know in 1 Corinthians 13 that love is even patient. Here we learn too that when we have these theological debates, we have to be patient. We have to be slow to speak. We have to listen, right, to folk. But then we must be forensic about our response. Not contributing to the noise, not adding to the decibels of, and the kind of, the velocity of all sorts of different things flying around. Our job is to wait, to watch, to contend skillfully, and we do that by being patient and being very careful and forensic with our instruction. I think if we take some of these things and if we meditate on the scripture, it will make it more likely that the conversations we have are productive, but also we know when to say, sorry, we're not playing this game anymore, because some folks will attempt to bait us and to attempt to get us off our game a bit, throw some sucker punches, but we, armed with the word, know that no, we're not going to debate on your terms. As Christians, we do these debates and discussions on our terms, and I think 2 Timothy 4 is a great portion of scripture to help us do that. Thank you for listening. I hope this was helpful somewhat. More videos like this will come out, so if you enjoyed this, do hit the subscribe button, turn your notification bell on, because here our desire is to help you know, but also go out and preach the gospel. On to the next one.